everyone, and thank you so much for coming to our Canva Space webinar today. I'll hand over to Hugo, who will be your host for today's show.
Awesome, Leah. Thank you very much. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to our show, Meet the Makers Design Edition this time. So, for those who don't know, Meet the Makers is a show where we talk to people that are behind the scenes, like building the product, building Canva. I'm Hugo. I am a product designer here at Canva. And I want to say that this series is all about sharing the stories that make up Canva. We are very lucky to have so many wonderful people working at Canva who come from all walks of life. And today, especially, we have joining here today our product designer, Samantha, to share a little bit more about her story. So before we actually give you space for Samantha to talk to us and tell her story in person here, I would love to just share a quick video that she put together where she tells a little bit about her stories.
Hello, I'm Samantha. I'm a product designer and I've been at Canva for almost 1 year now. I work on Canva Pro within the product design subspecialty, and more specifically, I work on the content planner where you can publish and schedule your social media posts directly from Canva. My favorite place in the world to travel has to be, I think, Italy. I've been there for a month a few years ago and instantly fell in love with the place, the culture, the food, mainly the food. If I could do one thing for the rest of my life, it would be to write in my journal. It helps me to reflect and give thanks for something unique that happened each and every day. My hidden talent, which I wouldn't call it a talent, but something I do like to do, is to draw, especially while watching Disney movies. By day, you will see me working on how we can improve our product. And by night, you'll most likely see me chilling on the couch, spending time with my husband.
So welcome, Samantha, to Meet the Makers show. Hey, Samantha.
Hello, hi everyone. Nice to meet you all. Really excited to be here.
So, Samantha, the first thing that we normally do here, and we'd love for you to share with us, is what features and parts of Canva have you been working on in the last couple of months? I know you're a product designer, so I'm pretty sure that you've been putting your hands on really exciting stuff. So could you share that with us?
So as a product designer, I've been working on the content planner where you can create, publish, and schedule social media posts directly from Canva. Some key features of the content planner I've worked on include connecting multiple accounts per social platform, inspiring users with templates of upcoming holiday events, and some which will be available to our users very soon, which aren't just live yet, such as the team view of the planner. So watch out this space for many more exciting improvements. And if you haven't used the content planner yet, make sure you check it out, especially if you're creating social media posts in Canva.
Amazing, Samantha. What a nice start, and talking to somebody who actually own a big part, I think, of social media marketers that have been using Canva, this whole content planner. I know that it's been a piece of work that a lot of our social media marketers have been waiting for. And when we launched that, they were really excited about that. So really nice to have you here today, Samantha. For us to start our conversation, I would love to hear from you, Samantha. What did you study before you actually become a product designer and actually being here today?
So I studied something slightly different to what I'm actually doing now. I actually graduated my bachelor degree in architecture.
Oh, wow. That's quite different from product design. And I need to ask then, how did you end up in product design?
So as soon as I graduated architecture, I knew I wanted to pursue graphic design for a long time. So I got a job as a graphic designer right after graduation. But after years of working, I actually missed the elements of architecture, which focused more on the interaction between the user and the designs, not just visually, but beyond, and the complex design thinking around it. So I started researching and I found out about UX design, which felt like a good mixture of the elements I loved in architecture as well as graphic design. So after 3 years of working as a graphic designer, I decided to take a short course in UX design and then changed my career.
Oh, wow. What a nice journey. And coming from architecture to product design, it feels like, as I said, it's within the design area, but it's still quite different. So really interesting to hear that. And as you are here today with us at Canva, I would love to hear as well, how did you end up like at Canva then as a product designer at Canva?
So my journey, after I studied a bit of UX design and made the decision to change my career into product design, UX design, I actually wrote in my notepad, one day I'll work at Canva, because I had a passion for Canva. I found out about it when it was in the early stages while I was volunteering and helping people to create graphic designs for other people. And then I instantly resonated with the vision of empowering anyone to design, because that's what I had always believed in. And that's what people that I was volunteering for really needed. But I didn't start my career here. I actually first started my career elsewhere at a fintech company to get some experience first. And then after 2 years, I saw a job listing from Canva and decided to apply because it had always been my dream to work here.
That's amazing. I love those stories like where you can totally see somebody who had that dream, had that focus, and got that done. I think it's brilliant when we hear those stories. And I would love to hear from you, like on this journey, because it feels, as you said, like that you even decide, for example, to work on a fintech before to kind of like get some experience as a product designer. What would you say that have been the biggest lessons that you learned along the way?
That's a good question, because I just casually said I applied to Canva just then. But when I was applying, I didn't expect at all to get a response. And even if I do, I didn't think it'd be a positive one. So I thought I had maybe a 1% chance, but I thought at least 1% would be worth it to take a shot since I cared so much about it. And it still surprises me sometimes that I'm here. But one thing I learned is even if you have a small chance, just to push yourself for it, not only for applying for jobs, but with anything you want to achieve, to take a shot. And if all fails, you would have learned something along the way, and you can always try again and do better next time around, or you might get what you wanted, even if you thought you had a small chance.
What a really good as well, like perspective into going into a challenge or something that you find that might be difficult. And for the people that are watching here, I want to say that like Samantha is being very humble about herself today, because like she was talking about the way that she applied and she didn't know if she would get like an interview. I actually had the pleasure to be on the interview process with Samantha and like interviewing her, and she did brilliant in that interview. Like she nailed it. So the way that she's speaking today, she's kind of like really playing low, like on her skill set and on her performance. She did it really, really well. But the other thing that I want to know now, because again, like just considering that you've been navigating from the different area, and then you did a little bit of like, you got a little bit of experience as product designer in a different industry, and then you applied, like decided to apply to work with Canva. And obviously now that you've been here for a couple of months already, like almost probably like a year, I want to know from you, like, how do you feel that Canva today is as your job as a product designer? What parts of your job that challenges you to actually grow and extend yourself?
There's definitely challenges in a good way, but I think a key challenge that I face is showing the future. So one of the principles of our product design team is to show the future. And a big part of the role as a product designer at Canva is to be a visionary, we say, to visualize and reinvent the future of design. And I find this part of my role very, very exciting, but also very challenging, because it's easy to get stuck into your current project where the user problem you're solving for is clear and get yourself into Figma. Whereas when you're exploring what direction the product should take and what we want our product to be in 5 years' time, you really need to think much broader and identify what is the right problem to tackle. So that part of my job continues to push myself and grow, which hasn't been easy, to be honest, but also very exciting because of how much impact I can contribute to identifying and solving real problems that are yet to be solved.
Yeah, I think like you make a really good point about visual communication inside of Canva. This is something that I always like took by, I want to say like by surprise, how heavy we are here at Canva on visual communication. Like I think by now I kind of very used, and probably you too, Samantha, like when we were talking about a product or a project, normally we talk like, oh yeah, I'm going to put a deck together. I'm going to put like a presentation together to talk about this topic or that topic. This is something that I feel that like right now, I feel that like it's very common. And I just take that for granted that everybody's going to put a deck or a presentation together. But coming from different companies or different jobs that I had in the past, I feel that like Canva really plays like what actually we sell as well. The idea that like visual communication can facilitate and make the job of like creating something much easier. So I think you make a really good point that visual communication was a big thing and keep challenges everybody as well.
For sure.
And as we were talking as well about Canva and the way that you work at Canva, I want to switch gears a little bit in here and ask you about like the Canva values. So one of the Canva values is being a force for good. I would love to hear from you, like, what is your interpretation of that value? Like, what does being a force for good mean to you?
For me, being a force for good means whoever you are, what skills or environment you're in, there is something you have or can do to be a force for good. I believe that the more you look around with a caring heart, the more you can see where support is needed. So this can be within your work team, it can be your family or friends, or even remote communities in Australia, even other countries where support is needed. And personally, I have a heart for children in remote Australian communities. So every year I try to volunteer and run a kids program in remote Aboriginal communities. And Canva has been a huge support for me to do this with our Force for Good leave, which is our 3 days of paid leave to do volunteer work each year. And I have to say, I'm no one, is special. I'm not someone who can do grand things, but it surprises me how many smiles I can bring to these children every time I visit. And that taught me something really important. It taught me that anyone can make a positive impact on the local and the global challenges around us. And I think Canva really knows this and supports this, which helps all of us individually to do our parts, but as well as a company, which is a huge company making a lot of impacts to everyone, to apply its that large force to do the good things in the world. And I really see that in our company and in the individuals.
I didn't know about this project that you were working on with the kids in the countryside. Like, this sounds amazing. And as you said, like, the idea of bringing those smiles to people, like, it's so rewarding, not in a personal level, but like as in humanity, like that you are supporting each other and make the other to feel better. So really, really nice take that you have on how do you translate to make that translation of being a force for good yourself. So thanks for sharing that story. I guess I have like kind of like a segue from that question, which is being a force for good is one of our values, but we have other values in the company. And one of the things that I normally see and I talk about, even like with candidates when we're interviewing people to work at Canva, is the idea like how people live those values, right? Like on a day-to-day. I would love to hear now from you, like, what's your opinion about the Canva culture? So it's like when you come to work at Canva, like, how do you feel the culture of the Canva as a workplace?
The culture here is super vibrant, more vibrant than any other companies I've worked at, and a lot of opportunities to find people of similar interests as you in your team and also outside your team as well. So to give an example, there's a lot of different clubs you can join at Canva, and I'm one of those who are less active than others, but even then so, I'm still a part of a few clubs like Burger Club, Doggies Club, Cat Club, Bible Club, Tea Club, Kiwi Club, and those are just some that I'm going. And it's great because you get a lot of opportunities to hang out with different people every season, because we get a budget of $100 per person for seasonal activities. And one that comes to my mind is the tea tasting session that we had during the lockdown. That was really nice because it was just the right timing for something very soothing and appropriate to stay home but try something different. So those are just some ways that we gather and hang out with people and get to know other people of other teams as well.
Totally. And I was going to ask you, like, do you take part of any clubs? And you kind of explained that really well. You also made me think about like that I should join the tea club. I love tea, and knowing that I didn't even think about that we had a tea club. So as we're growing, I guess that there is like the number of clubs is growing a lot as well. And I can imagine that there would be a club for everybody here at Canva.
Oh,
so
for sure. And if there isn't, you can start a club. So that's also another
totally
option.
And that's like one of the things that I was really surprised as well when I started Canva. Like, they introduced this concept of clubs as affinity groups inside of Canva. And when I started to discover that like people could start their own clubs and create these communities within Canva, it was really, really interesting. And as you said, like the variety of clubs that we have is incredible. We're getting kind of close to the end of the questions that I had here for you, but one question that I have for you is about For people that are here watching us today that might be interested in joining Canva at some stage, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give someone who really wants to join Canva moving forward?
Having been there, I guess something that I realized is Canva is always hiring for a very diverse set of talent. So if I had to pick one piece of advice, something that I would have liked to know is to know where your strengths are and really highlight them as what makes you different. Many product designers at Canva have very, very different backgrounds and stories. So while we all lead the end-to-end product design process, we all collaborate a lot to combine our different strengths. And you really see that happening on a daily basis. The big question would be, where can I have an impact? And if it's unclear, I think that's okay too, because I felt that way. It probably means your skills are balanced, which is why one thing might not stand out to you as much. And maybe that could be your strength as well. So overall, we're interested in who you are and how you can be a part of the vision in empowering the world to design. So really highlight what makes you different, what makes you strong as a designer, and also to have confidence and take a shot, like I said, because you never know. You might think low of yourself, but we might love you and want to hire you right now. So I would say those two things would be the advice that I'd give.
What a beautiful advice, Samantha. Really, really on point, I feel. Again, this is a question that I get asked as well, a lot of times, and people say, well, what do I need to be or to have to get hired at Canva? And I think you found really good words to describe that, showing your potential as a person, where you can add value. Sometimes it doesn't need to align specifically to a role. One thing that I probably add to this is the fact that Canva is growing super fast, as you probably can see, people that are watching us here might have seen on the news or anything like that. And as we're growing as a product, as a company, the number of opportunities that we have is kind of infinite at this stage. Every day we have new needs inside of the company. We need somebody who does that. We need somebody to do this. We need somebody to do that. Showing your potential, exactly what you said, Samantha, showing where you can add value is actually, for us here at Canva, it's amazing because we can kind of talk to people in interviews and then kind of pinpoint saying oh, that skill, we didn't even think that we really need it right now, but there is an opportunity right here that could fit for that person. So I really, really like your advice. Thanks very much for sharing that as well, Samantha. One other question that I had for you before we go into the Q&A, who would you be, or who were the biggest influence on your life until now, where you are here today as a product designer at Canva?
So I was very fortunate to work with a mentor who really guided me when I first started my career in UX design. So at my first company as a UX designer. My mentor's name is Shruti, and I can't explain how much I've learned from her by just watching how she researches, leads the design process, and just working with her as well. And it's been an extra pleasure because I've always wanted a mentor, but I wasn't sure where and how to find one. But I realized you don't have to look very far, and many times there's a lot you can learn from the senior designers you work with. So I'm especially thankful that my mentor reached out to me first to mentor me. And honestly, she has shaped me so much in becoming the product designer I am here today. So I would say she probably had the biggest influence, especially on my career and my journey till now.
That's awesome. I can say that we thank her as well, because you are here working on our team today. And I feel, I love that, because I feel that you're being a great addition to our team, Samantha. And I think what you said, having a mentor is a big piece as well. I think of the puzzle normally when you are developing your career. So again, really nice to know that you had somebody like that and was influenced in that way. And one final question to you, which is just about, what are your favorite career-related books that you have on your nightstand or on your shelves there that you recommend to people?
I actually have my books right behind me, although you can't see because of my background. If I had to choose my favorite career-related books, I really love Jake Knapp's books. If you don't know Jake Knapp, he's a very famous designer from Google. And some of the books that he is very well known for include Sprint. And I've read Sprint and Make Time, which are the two favorite books of his that I have read. And both have been really easy and enjoyable to read, with a lot of applications that I can take into both work and personal lives. And if I be completely honest here, I am not much of a reader. Like I try to read a lot, but I really don't. At the end of the year, I look back and I'm like, how many books did I read? But these two books I read and finished in 1 week. Like I just, every night I'd be like so interested. Very easy to read. But I think more importantly, it's just such a valuable book, even if you're not going to run a sprint, which you should whenever you see an opportunity. But I would still suggest reading the sprint book, because there are so many techniques and strategies that you can apply in your day-to-day without necessarily running a whole sprint. And I've definitely taken away a lot of different techniques and methodologies that I could apply into my everyday work life as well. So I would say if you haven't read those two, sprint and make time, definitely get yourself a copy and start reading soon.
Nice one. This sprint one is one of my favorite books as well. I think it's so practical. You can kind of like, as the author is talking about it and talking about the tasks that you can do, especially like as a product designer in a team, I think it's really good even to inspire, like whatever phase of a project that you are on. Like if you read that book, there is always something that you can get from that and apply straight away.
For sure. I have done that many times.
Awesome. Thanks very much for sharing that, Samantha, like all your tips on these books, and also like answering all the questions that I had here for you today. I would love to move us now to the Q&A section of this webinar. And to start with, we got some questions in here. Like I think the first one that I have is, as a visionary, what frameworks do you use to practically and technically back your big ideas into life?
Very good question. As a visionary, I think even as a visionary, you still have to have your foundations in your research insights. So coming back to what are the big problems that we are seeing, and how is that really a problem? Is that a real problem, or are we assuming things? So validating those problems, finding more about those problems. Why are people experiencing it? So I think it comes back to your research insights. And I think that's the foundation of all sort of visions that you come up with. And regarding framework, there's a lot of different frameworks that you can apply, but at the end of the day, all frameworks end up, starting with a big problem that you're solving for, and what is a big solution that comes out of that. So I think that's the key thing to remember as a visionary. It's exciting to jump into future stuff, but also really remembering what is the big problem that we're trying to solve here for our big vision ahead.
Really, really good answer. The other question that I have is about the life of a product designer. So what are some key human qualities you think are essential to thrive as a product designer?
I guess when you first, learn UX design, people always throw around the word empathy. And I think it's actually, at first, when I first started studying, I was like, everybody's somewhat empathetic. And that's a good thing, but I think it really does mean a lot as a product designer to have empathy, to really relate these problems that you're seeing to yourself and feeling it as if you are them, because that's the way that you really take it seriously, and you really have the heart to solve these problems for a lot of people as a product designer. And that is a really special quality and skills that I think you're given. So being able to have empathy for the people that you are designing for. People say design as if you would do it for your mom, make technology easier for everyone. But likewise, I think that's something that you should have every day in your just character, but also empathy with the people that you're working with, because you're working with a lot of different people, and product design is someone who needs to be very collaborative, and to have empathy for the other roles that you're working with, and really understanding what perspectives they're coming from, hearing them and working together. Those all fall under this big picture of empathetic character.
100%. I feel like that empathy is something that, even like, as I have a similar background where I came from graphic design and then web design and product design, like the deeper that you go into product design, especially, empathy is something that it kind of like you need to continue to develop more and more, because the more that you work in product, the more you understand the importance of really understanding and feeling what the user is feeling and thinking. So really, really like that advice. And one final question that I have is about, I think we talk about being a force for good, and you gave the example of like what you do, mainly like outside of work, being a force for good, that Canva empowers you to be a force for good in many ways. The question that I have is like, in what ways do you think your role as a product designer contributes to being a force for good and to add value to the world and community? How do you see you being a force for good as a product designer?
I see it in two big areas. One is through the design and one is as a professional. So if I talk about through design first, product designer is such a good role to be in, to be a force for good, because you are making people's lives easier and you can make improvements to people's lives. And that is the kind of power as a product designer. So really being able to make improvements to people's lives through what you're designing and knowing what they are trying to do, but finding it difficult and being a force for good to change that for them is, I guess, through the design, how you can be a force for good. But also as a professional, there's a lot of opportunities that you can be a force for good. So for example, a lot of people actually start off in a different industry and then come into product design, like myself. And a lot of them wonder how to get in. What is product design? Should I really jump into this field? How do I learn more about it? And they want to reach out to a lot of people, but it's really hard. So as a professional, being able to support them or answer their questions, spend time with them, mentor them wherever there is an opportunity, the students or people who are looking for career change. That's also another way that as a product designer, you can be a force for good, especially because it's such an interesting role and a lot of people come to know more about it. So I see it as two big areas through the actual work that you're doing as a product designer and also as a profession, reaching out to other people in the industry.
I love the way that you're talking about one of Canva values, which is like being a force for good. And in the same way that you're explaining that, you're also using a second Canva value, which is like empowering others. And the way that you're describing that you like as a professional, being able to help those folks who want to get into the area that are trying to crack in, you're already describing like empowering other people to do that as well. So really nice. And one other question that I have is, what was your biggest challenge you faced when you switched from architect to graphic design?
I think the biggest challenge is the things that you have to consider is slightly different. So I imagine that as architecture is a spatial design and how you're interacting with the user and the building spatially, whereas graphic design is very much visual communication. So how are you interacting with the user visually? So it's kind of similar, but I think the big challenge was, for me personally, was how much can you balance between the visual communication of what you think is the best between the design and the audience, as well as the intention from the business side of what they want to communicate, how much they want to communicate, and also how they want the design to actually look. So there's a bit of everything that you have to consider as a graphic designer, and that's always been a challenge for me. But I think it's more about the way that I got through it was being able to just provide the different options that satisfies the business stakeholder the most, and then the one that's best for the user. But obviously explaining yourself which option is better for whatever reasons, also acknowledging that they have these ideas, which could be good, but also some ideas could be better. And you just want to add that to them, but without offending them, but being able to just show them what is a better solution. And then trying to actually, do the best for the audience that you're communicating with through the visual design. I think that was a big challenge as a graphic designer, but also I think that's kind of the fun part of the graphic design role, being able to know how to visually communicate and what is the best and winning over that.
And I can imagine, like, when you're working with architecture design versus graphic design, I always thought about like the difference between those two is just like architecture, you need to be much more, I wouldn't describe as precise on your design, because your designs will actually be buildings, and like as next stages, like they will become big things. While graphic design, I think that there is a little bit more, it's a little bit lighter, right? Like it's a little bit, you have a little bit more room for kind of like, yeah, if we don't get this 100% right, we can play with that. Is that true? Did you feel that difference as well? Or
I actually did. I really did. Because architecture, when you design things wrong, especially structurally, although you work with a structural engineer to do that, you still have some input in that. And if you do something wrong, somebody could get injured, or the worst cases, somebody could actually die from it. Right. So I remember, when I made mistakes in graphic design, telling myself, at least no one dies from this. It's okay. I used to tell myself that. Obviously, graphic design has its own challenges, but I think there were some level of that seriousness that I took in terms of what could be the worst outcome.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what comes to my mind when I think about the difference between those disciplines. Other question, which is one that I actually love to ask people as well, is what do you usually do to inspire creativity when you feel stuck at work?
That is such a good question, because it does come. I think two different things. One is I look at other really great designs done by other people and try to get inspirations from there as well, looking at other products or looking at other design case studies. There's a lot out there and it's just a matter of a few clicks away. So really spending some time researching is one way. But the other way, which I also really like, is actually just talking to another designer. That really helps me to get inspired because, like I said, every designer is slightly different in their background, in their specialties and their strengths. So when you start to collaborate with other people, you also get different perspectives and different ideas generating. And you, by collaborating with someone, actually sometimes generate the ideas that you wouldn't have if you were designing by yourself. So that's another big inspiration for me, where I can reach out to somebody at my work and go, hey, can we just spend 30 minutes ideating together? And that is a huge source of inspiration from my experience. Definitely the one that I love to do.
Awesome. Yeah, like really good tips. I definitely heard before the idea that like talking to designers is an inspiration itself. Like I think designers, as you said, like people think differently. I even extend sometimes even talking to other people about a problem. I feel that like just diverse group of people, you normally get different perspectives, and that in itself is a good source of inspiration as well.
I agree. I said designers, but I actually talked to a lot of engineers for inspiration as well, because sometimes they come up with a very different solution coming from a very different perspective. And that also helps me to get inspired in a different way. So it really helps to just talk to people around you and solve problems together. I think that is the power of collaboration.
Totally, 100%. And one other question that I have here as well is about the way that you changed the way you work after the pandemic, especially. So when the pandemic started and everyone transitioned more to online and hybrid ways of doing things, did that shift the nature of your work?
I think some parts of my work has changed. It was more of just working around our limitations of remote working. You think about UX design, and at least for me, the few things that come to my mind is a lot of Post-it notes. And that is very true. We get a whiteboard, we get a lot of Post-it notes, we put them everywhere on the walls. That is what we do a lot. When you work remotely, it's really hard to do that because you're not able to see someone physically and put Post-it notes together. We use other brainstorming tools, Post-it remotely, trying to resolve all those things in a similar way. Something that I guess I learned through this pandemic is, some things may change and it might be harder, but it's never not possible to do. So you always have some workarounds it, and then you find some benefits around that too. I love the fact that I don't have to record every Post-it notes now that everything's online. I used to transfer each Post-it note to the digital space notes. I don't have to do that anymore. So that's one benefit I did not see coming when pandemic hit. But there has been some changes, but honestly speaking, I think we were fortunate to continue with a lot of tools out there that has been very valuable during pandemic time.
100% again, I agree with you. It kind of connects as well to one of the questions that we had for you before, which was what are I think we talk about like the human qualities that you have to be a good product designer. And I think it ties really well with what you're saying now. One thing that I always say when people ask me that question is about like you being adaptable. Like I think for product designers to succeed, they have to be adaptable, because I think like the industry, design, product, it's growing so fast. So things change very quickly. And I think, again, what happened during the pandemic was exactly that. Like you probably remember, Samantha, but it was like from one day to the other. It's literally like on a Thursday, they said like we're going to close the office tomorrow. And then on Friday, everybody's working from home. And as much as we had tools and means to work from home, we're not used to it because we were all in the office before. I want to say like 90% of us, 95% of us, we were doing what you said before. Like we would like hang out like in a meeting room to talk about something, put like some Post-its on the wall, get the whiteboards, just scribble some notes in there. But as we had to do that switch, I want to say that like that quality of being adaptable and being one of the qualities that we actually look at people when we are hiring here at Canva made a huge difference, because everybody was committed to take that and adapt to like, okay, we're going to have to work from home. We're going to have to find new ways of doing whiteboarding. We're going to have to find new ways of doing product discussions. So being adaptable, I would just add to that list when we asked before about the human qualities to be a good product designer. I think plays very well to be adaptable as well.
I agree 100%. We were forced to be adaptable, but it was a good training session.
we have time for one more question. And the last one that I have for you is, do you have any recommendations to get started in this space? So it's like any online course or any resource that you could point out to people that are keen to get into product design?
When I first was interested in UX design, there are a lot of courses out there, paid and free, but there's also a lot of 1 day, 2 or 3 days workshops that you can attend, either free or for a very cheap price. And I think that was a great way for me to even get in and understand whether if this is something that I wanted to pursue before committing myself to it and learning more about it. So look online for a lot of different workshops, whether if it's a day or a few days, and just take the time out of that week and really just spend time learning more about it. And then if you feel that this is the right way for you, then there's a lot of books, a lot of courses, a lot of people like myself who you can reach out to learn more, and even take a whole course like I did to learn. So definitely there's a lot out there. It's just matter of researching and, first of all, most importantly, understanding if it is the right thing that you want to pursue.
100%. I agree with you what you said. I probably want to reinforce as well that Canva is opening a program like for starters that want to start in the industry of tech. So there is multiple roles. It's a program called like Launchpad, something that is coming up in the next coming months. So for people that are here watching us today and feel that you want to join Canva and this is your first time getting to tech, Launchpad program could be a really good opportunity. So keep an eye on our website, on our careers website, because you might get more information about that in the next coming days. But Samantha, I want to say a big thank you for you to dedicate this time, this hour here, or almost like an hour talking to us, going through these really good questions. And I think the audience had even better questions for us today that made this session really, really interesting. So thank you once more. And I can't wait to keep seeing all the good stuff that you're doing at Canva. So thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Samantha. It's been awesome hearing about your journey and your insights into the industry. We've heard a lot about collaborating online and the virtual workplace that's changed a lot over the last year. So I just thought I'll quickly tell everybody that we have a lot of brainstorming templates actually within Canva. And so if you haven't already, make sure to search brainstorm in our templates bar and they should pop up and you can collaborate live with your team, which is awesome. So that wraps up our show for today. If you'd like to attend future episodes of Meet the Makers Live and get a chance to ask our Canva employees questions, you can sign up to any of our live events via the Design School events page. And so you can find all of our upcoming webinars right there. Thank you so much for attending Meet the Makers today. I hope you learned something, and make sure to stay tuned for future episodes with our extremely talented team here at Canva. You can also follow Canva on our social channels for everything you need to know about life here at Canva. I hope you have a great day or evening wherever you are in the world today. So that's all from us, and thank you. Bye.